Picking up with Mr. Lorry. Mr. Lorry was already out when he got back, and it was easy to surmise where the good old man was gone. Sidney Carton drank nothing but a little coffee, ate some bread, and having washed and changed to refresh himself, went out to the place of the trial. The court was all astir and abuzz when the black sheep, whom many fell away from in the crowd, pressed him into an obscure corner among the crowd. Mr. Lorry was there, and Dr. Manette was there. She was there, sitting beside her father. When her husband was brought in, she turned to look upon him, so sustaining, so encouraging, so full of admiring love and pitying tenderness, yet so courageous for his sake, that it called the healthy blood into his face, brightened his glance, and animated his heart. If there had been any eyes to notice the influence of her look on Sidney Carton, it would have been seen to be the same influence exactly. So here we have, he's scanning the crowd, and he sees Mr. Lorry and Dr. Manette, and of course then he sees Lucy. And he sees Lucy see Charles Darnay, and she gives him such a loving, kind, courageous look that both Sidney Carton and Charles Darnay are affected by it. They both kind of get this blush to their faces. They both kind of gain courage from the look that she's giving. All right, picking up with before. Before that unjust tribunal, there was little or no order of procedure, ensuring to any accused person any reasonable hearing. There could have been no such revolution if all laws, forms, and ceremonies had not first been so monstrously abused that the suicidal vengeance of the revolution was to scatter them all to the winds. Every eye was turned to the jury, the same determined patriots and good Republicans as yesterday and the day before and tomorrow and the day after. Eager and prominent among them, one man with a craving face and his fingers perpetually hovering about his lips, whose appearance gave great satisfaction to the spectators, a life-thirsting, cannibal-looking, bloody-minded juryman, the Jacques III of Saint Antoine. The whole jury as a jury of dogs impaneled to try the deer. So here we find out that the jury, as you should know, in our justice system, a jury is picked. It's a jury of your peers, and it's picked, and it's a different one for each trial. Not so in Revolutionary France. It's the same jury day after day. And one of the major ones is Jacques III, who, you remember, he's biting his fingers constantly as if he's starving for flesh. It's this bloodthirsty, it even says cannibal-looking, bloody-minded juryman. And then he compares, Dickens, or the narrator, compares the jury to dogs being impaneled to try their prey. Picking up with every eye. Every eye then turned to the 5 judges and the public prosecutor. No favorable leaning in that quarter today. A fell, uncompromising, murderous business meaning there. Every eye then sought some other eye in the crowd and gleamed at it approvingly, and heads nodded at one another before bending forward with strained attention. Charles Evrémonde called Darnay, released yesterday, reaccused and retaken yesterday, indictment delivered to him last night, suspected and denounced enemy of the Republic, aristocrat, one of a family of tyrants, one of a race proscribed, for that they had used their abolished privileges to the infamous oppression of the people. Charles Evrémonde called Darnay, in right of such proscription, absolutely dead in law. To this effect, in as fewer words, the public prosecutor. The president asked, was the accused openly denounced or secretly? Openly. Oh, wait a second. By whom? 3 voices. Ernest Defarge, wine vendor of Saint Antoine. Good. Therese Defarge, his wife. Good. Alexander Manette, physician. So here we have the twist, that little bit of surprise there. We knew that he had been denounced by the people of Saint Antoine, and there was a third person. When Charles Darnay is arrested the second time, there is a third person that the people, hold one second, baby, that the people did not tell Darnay who it was. And we find out here at the trial that the third person to denounce or accuse Charles Darnay is his father-in-law, Dr. Manette. A great uproar took place in the court, and in the midst of it Dr. Manette was seen, pale and trembling, standing where he had been seated. "President, I indignantly protest to you that this is forgery and a fraud. You know the accused to be the husband of my daughter. My daughter and those dear to her are far dearer to me than my life. Who and where is this false conspirator who says that I denounce the husband of my child?" Citizen Manette, be tranquil. To fail in submission to the authority of the tribunal will be to put yourself out of law. As to what is dearer to you than life, nothing can be so dear to a good citizen as the Republic. Loud acclamations hailed this rebuke. The president rang his bell and with warmth resumed. "If the Republic should demand of you the sacrifice of your child herself, you would have no duty but to sacrifice her. Listen to what is to follow. In the meanwhile, be silent." So here we find the absolute insanity of the Republic at this time period. They truly believed that if you were asked to sacrifice your child, I mean, he says it, if the Republic demands of you to sacrifice your child, you have no duty but to sacrifice her. So he says, shut up, your son-in-law doesn't matter here. The only thing that matters is the Republic. Picking up with frantic acclamations were again raised. Dr. Manette sat down with his eyes looking around and his lips trembling. His daughter drew closer to him. The craving man on the jury rubbed his hands together and restored the usual hand to his mouth. Defarge was produced. When the court was quiet enough to admit of his being heard, and rapidly expounded the story of the imprisonment, and of his having been a mere boy in the doctor's service, and of the release, and of the state of the prisoner when released and delivered to him, this short examination followed, for the court was quick with its work. "You did good service at the taking of the Bastille, citizen." "I believe so." Here an excited woman screeched from the crowd, "You were one of the best patriots there. Why not say so? You were a cannoneer that day there, and you were among the first to enter the accursed fortress when it fell. Patriots, I speak the truth." It was the Vengeance who, amidst the warm commendations of the audience, thus assisted the proceedings. The president rang his bell, but the Vengeance, warming with encouragement, shrieked, "I defy that bell," wherein she was likewise much commended. "Inform the tribunal of what you did that day within the Bastille, citizen." "I knew," said Defarge, looking down at his wife, who stood at the bottom of the steps on which he was raised, looking steadily up at him, "I knew that this prisoner, of whom I speak, had been confined in a cell known as 105 North Tower. I knew it from himself. He knew himself by no other name than 105 North Tower when he made shoes under my care. And I serve my gun that day. I revolve, when the place shall fall, to examine that cell. It falls. I mount to the cell with a fellow citizen who is one of the jury, directed by a jailer. I examine it very closely. In a hole in the chimney, where a stone has been worked out and replaced, I find a written paper. This is that written paper. I have made it my business to examine some specimens of the writing of Dr. Manette. This is the writing of Dr. Manette. I confide this paper, in the writing of Dr. Manette, to the hands of the president. Let it be read." So here we find out, remember back at the storming of the Bastille, one of the first things that, or the first thing that Defarge does when the Bastille falls is demand to be taken to Dr. Manette's prison cell, and they search it. And we don't know for certain at the time, but we find out here that he did find what he was looking for, something that was written by Dr. Manette.